Let's say you just won the lottery and you want yourself a luxury SUV. What's the first option that comes to your mind? If you said Toyota Land Cruiser, then we totally can't blame you for that. After all, it's been the dream SUV for Filipinos for quite some time already. Or it's either the Lexus LX or the Nissan Patrol. Or if you want something with a more European flavor, something like a BMW X5. But multimillionaires of the Philippines, we want to turn your attention to this one, the Audi Q7. But first things first, how is the Audi Q7 like on the road? Now, this being a German-engineered machine, you'd expect it to be good on the highway, and that's exactly that. Now, the Q7 is totally adept to this kind of thing. The ride is smooth, pillowy almost, and we are in auto mode right now. And if you want it to be even more pillowy and cloud-like, you set the car in comfort mode, but that might be a little too wallowy for some days. So personally, just stick the car in auto, and you're pretty much good to go. Just leave it there. That being said, there are several suspension modes. There's off-road, all-road, as the aforementioned comfort and auto. Then there's performance or dynamic, which lowers the car a little bit more and makes it handle a little bit better. Now, this is powered by a 3-liter V6 TDI engine. Yes, it is a turbo diesel. So you have about 280 horsepower and 600 Newton meters of torque. Now, that's a lot of power under the hood. However, I did notice that there is a fair bit of lag, which I'll now demonstrate. And there goes the power. If you want a more immediate throttle response, you're going to have to play with the flappy paddles a little bit. But, if you roll onto the throttle, you're sort of making a gentle overtake. It's fine in most cases, but personally, I'd like a little bit of a snappier throttle response. Now, it may have a 3-liter V6 under the engine, but economy is very good. Now, even in the city, you're still looking at about 8 to 9 kilometers per liter, and that's in heavy traffic. And on the expressway, if you have a gentle foot, it'll easily do 18 kilometers per liter all day, every day. In terms of handling, okay, it's not the most dynamic, though non-RS Audi models have always been sort of like that. Instead, you're greeted with quiet competence now. If you want a more engaging drive, there's, the Porsche Cayenne and the BMW X5. But if comfort is your priority, this easily is one of the top in its segment. I'm also going to take some time to mention the NVH, or the refinement in this thing. Because, when you hear a diesel, you're usually going to hear like a clattery, claggy sound, but that's totally not the case here in the Q7. It's very much well suppressed, but you sort of expect that from a car of this caliber. So it's comfortable, refined, not the sportiest, but it's still somewhat engaging. And that's the best way to sum up the Q7 in terms of its drive. Now, of course, those in the market for a luxury SUV want something that feels rich and premium and something that, that's worth their money. And Audi doesn't disappoint in that aspect. In fact, Audi has made some of the best interiors in the past couple of decades. Though, of course, you're not really going to be touching a lot of plastic in here. So the door tops, they're soft touch and soft foam right here in the middle as well. And there's more right here by the door handle. And this bit right here, that is real aluminum. And in fact, it extends all the way down here. So hindi ka tinipid sa materials dito. That's all I can say about the Q7. And in front of me is Audi's virtual cockpit. So what you do here is, it's a multitude of screens. So you could see your fuel consumption, drive data, your infotainment, your entertainment, your navigation, and much more. Now, I normally say I don't like screens, a lot of screens in the car, and I've recently mentioned that the Germans seem to have something against buttons. Now, the Q7, well, it's no different. There's not much in the way of buttons here. However, when you look at the way that the screen is arranged, it's still sort of arranged in a way that there are buttons there. So basically it projects buttons. And the best part is, it's got haptic touch. So you don't have to be looking at it all the time when you're driving and guess which button you're pressing, because there is feedback. Also, you get power seats with memory, which is par for the course in any luxury vehicle, and a Bang & Olufsen audio system. Now, right in front of me, there are already 7 speakers. So you have 1 in each corner of the dashboard, you have 4 in total on the A-pillar, and then you have a center speaker right up there. And it doesn't stop there either, because you have a pair of speakers on each of the front doors, you have a pair of speakers on each of the B-pillars, the rear doors, the rear ceiling, and over all the way at the back. to give you a 3D surround sound feel. So of course, the Q7 comes with a plethora of driver assist. So simply press this button and you get different kinds of views here. So there's the forward camera, the rear camera, and of course you have your side cameras and curb cameras as well. Makes parallel parking a lot easier too. So that's the front of this covered. Let's move over to the back. Now I do want to point out that the Q7 has soft closed doors, so you just pull the door in, you don't have to slam it, and it just sucks in the entire door to shut it. Now anyway, what's the backseat like of the Q7? Now I look absolutely lost at the back of this because again, this is a pretty large SUV. So stacks of legroom, loads of hip room, lots of headroom as well. Now you have AC vents not just here attached to the center console, you also have them on the B pillar just to make the rear end a little bit chillier. And the aforementioned extra speakers on the B pillar. You also have them down here on the door, and there's also automatic climate control back here. So this car has quad zone climate control. USB ports, they're all USB-C here. So if you have a lightning cable with a USB-A port, you're out of luck. But if you have a newer phone or you have an Android phone, well, it's just like before. Now the seats of the Q7 slide forwards and back. But interestingly, it's not the usual 60-40 split here. In fact, all of these seats can adjust individually, even this middle seat right here. And the best part is you can also recline the rear seats so you can actually lounge at the back of the Q7. Right, so onto the third row. So to get there, pull this lever, and with clear and guided instructions, push this down and pull the entire seat up. There are a set of buttons so you can do it electrically. That being said, you have to hold them because they're not fully automatic. Okay, so time to see how much space there is back all the way in the third row. Now, even someone of my stature, well, my knee's already hitting the backrest of the second row. Of course, you can adjust or slide the seat forward to make a little bit more room, but the seats themselves, well, they're a little too low to make it really comfortable. Again, typical in any three-row SUV or crossover, these seats are best reserved for children or smaller adults, yes, even smaller than me. So that's the third row of the Audi Q7. What's the cargo space like then? And now for the cargo space, and the tailgate is, of course, electrically assisted, as you'd expect from a vehicle in its segment. Now, behind the third row seats, you have about 295 liters of space, which is about the same as a subcompact hatchback. But if you fold the third row down, press these buttons, bit of a wait because it's not one touch, fold those seats down, and you have 780 liters worth of cargo space. Now, in case you find the loading lip of the Q7 a little too high or too low, you tall creature you, there is a way around it. Now, with a pair of buttons back here, you can control the rear suspension. Now remember, this thing is an air suspension, so you do have that capability. Just pressing either of these buttons, you can either lower it, or you can raise it. Again, it's not exactly one touch, so you'll have to hold it. But either way, it gives you that option and that flexibility to make loading items in and out that bit easier. So anyway, that's the cargo area of the Q7. Now let's check out the exterior. Now, the Q7 has been around for a long time already, and through the years, basically we can say that it's aged like fine wine. Now, surely it's not as sort of in-your-face or bold as aggressive as, say, a Toyota Land Cruiser or a Nissan Patrol, but those are much bigger SUVs. Or maybe we can compare it sort of to a BMW X5 with its large grille and slim headlights that's sort of more in your face. It's not too shouty, and it's perfect for people who'd rather whisper about their wealth instead of shouting about it. So if you're watching this video until now, you're probably wondering, how much is the Audi Q7? Well, PJ doesn't exactly mention the prices outright, but the Q7 is somewhere in the region of 7 million pesos. So that makes it a little bit more expensive than its German stablemates and a lot more expensive than, say, a Lexus RX. But anyway, let's move on to the pros and cons. Now, the pros, definitely the comfort and the refinement. The Q7, when it comes to those aspects, it's pretty hard to beat. Like, some people couldn't even tell that this was a diesel. And it's quiet, it's refined, it's smooth, and even when you're stepping on the accelerator quite hard, it's more of a hushed thrum of that V6 rather than a claggy diesel sound. So they've really sorted out this V6 TDI engine for smoothness and refinement. Another thing, of course, is the interior quality. It's almost second to none, really. And I mean, this does form the basis of the Bentley Bentayga, and you could argue that this is a baby Bentley already. Other things, of course, there's the space of it. I mean, it's over 5 meters long already, so there's room easily for 5 people. Then, of course, the styling. Now, yes, it's getting on a little bit, but you know what? It's subtle, it's handsome, it's not too in your face, and you know, it's not really gonna draw any polarizing opinion. So that's basically what Audi design has been for the last couple of decades. Now for the cons, well, it's kind of few and far between. Now we're gonna start with the driving experience. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I mentioned earlier, but it's not sort of as dynamic as a BMW X5 or a Porsche Cayenne. But those are in a different league when it comes to sportiness. Now, this is more towards comfort. Another would be, as I mentioned earlier, the lack of advanced driver assist systems. Would be nice to see more of that in this segment, especially among the European players in the Philippines. Third would be that turbo lag when you're starting off. Now, it's sort of programmed into the system, so it doesn't just whoosh out all that torque all in one go. But in cases that you just have to hurry up, well, it takes its time a little bit. It's a bit more relaxed when it comes to that. But you know, a little bit more immediacy would have been nice from its throttle response, and that's sort of pre-programmed in. Other than that, you know, it's a brilliant, brilliant SUV, even after all these years. And basically, the Audi Q7 has aged like fine wine. There is one major caveat though. The biggest problem of the Q7 isn't its competitors or the cons that I just mentioned. Its biggest problem is its own cousin, the Porsche Cayenne. See, in this market, what's a couple million more between friends, right? So this is, let's say, around 7 million and the Cayenne is about 9, 10 mil. If you're in a market for a luxury SUV, you're gonna go all out. But for those who chose the Q7 over the Cayenne, we can call them connoisseurs of some sort because they chose this knowing that the sportier and more dynamic Cayenne does exist, and they bought this knowing what they're getting and knowing what they want in the first place. But if you're in the market for a luxury SUV, you're still sort of shopping around, give this a try because we reckon you're not going to regret it. As for the total score, well, it's almost perfect. It's so tempting to give it a 9 out of 10. So maybe we'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. But with that, we're expecting greater things with the next generation Q7.